1, 2, 3.
Here, I gotta undress.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna turn my camera off. I want to be really comfortable for this.
Lucky us.
It gets super hot in here.
Fuck yeah.
All right, ready? All right, where's my notes? Okay.
This is Auteur Detour, wherein three film lovers travel through the filmographies of cinema's most important directors in hopes of finding a greater understanding on the other side.
Wait, how do I start? I didn't write like my intro today. I mean, I wrote the intro, but I didn't write like the episode intro. Okay. Hey, it's Wait, start over. Hi, it's Travis, Chris, and Ian. Auteur Detour, let's go. Today.
Hi.
Oh, you guys want to say something? Get it out now. I wrote a long intro to this movie.
Okay, go
Let's
ahead.
get it on.
Today we're discussing the Coen Brothers' 2003 comedy, Intolerable Cruelty. The film begins with a prologue featuring the classic comedic stylings of that beloved funny man, Jeffrey Rush. He's getting cheated on by his wife, and since they're both rich sickos, the wife goes to an expensive, undefeated divorce lawyer to protect her assets. I'm going to save you all, listeners, the annoyance of hearing every alliterative and rhyming character name from this movie. So we'll just say, enter George Clooney. He's rich, good looking, and I guess bored or something. He quickly gets involved in a case with Zeta Jones, with whom he has an immediate physical attraction. Unfortunately, that's not enough to stop him from utterly destroying her in court against all odds and leaving her bankrupt. He's unbothered until she immediately gets engaged again to a Texas oil man and goes to Clooney for a prenup, insisting she doesn't want any of the oil man's money. Of course, it's all a scheme, and we have to sit around while the machinery of the plot slowly works itself out. Now, we like romantic comedies with a touch of darkness, emotional manipulation, games, because we know that love is going to triumph in the end. But when George Clooney realizes he's been duped, the dark depths which he goes to, not just hiring a hitman to kill Zeta Jones, but just going along with it because his boss told him to, it may just stretch the sensibilities of the average moviegoer. I was already completely checked out by that point, so it had no effect on me whatsoever. So guys, I put it to you. What went wrong?
Oh my God.
What went wrong with this movie?
So,
Ian, yeah. Please.
I've actually seen this movie probably more than any other Coen Brothers movie.
Are you serious?
Oh. No, of course not. This movie is the biggest.
I mean, maybe they play it on HBO every morning. I don't know.
You need a hug, Ian?
No, like it's the worst. Like I was just thinking, like I've in my mind, having seen every Coen Brothers movie, like had lady killers just firmly at the bottom in my mind going into this series, and now I'm like, how in the fuck is it possible that Lady Killers is gonna stoop lower than this movie? It's so bad. I have a lot of thoughts about where it went wrong, but Chris, what do you think about it?
Okay, so this was actually the first time I'd seen it. I went in totally blind. The only thing I ever knew about the movie was just the cover, where it's just Clooney and Zeta Jones, right? And they're kind of just looking at each other distantly. And that's really basically what this is they're distant from each other. The entire movie, I mean, there's no chemistry. It's like, there's so much that went wrong here. Basically,
Agreed.
I was okay. The first maybe 15-ish, 20 minutes. It completely lost me during the court scene where like the dad from the Lost Boys kind of charges them the stand, and it just gets ridiculous, and it only devolves into just this horrible. I don't know. I found myself asking myself, who's this movie for? It's not for rom-com fans because it's not at all romantic. It's not for like comedy fans. Yeah. It's like not funny in the ways in which they were hoping it would be.
I mean, can we just say like its biggest like crime is that it's just like so unfunny. Like it would get so much of a pass if it had like one or two funny moments.
So
in it.
I laughed out loud at this movie more than I did at Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I'll give it that. Like I'm not joking. I like Oh Brother Where Art Thou there's way more to appreciate in that movie, obviously. But I think this movie, like if it had been made in the 1980s, you know, like if it was done by somebody like the people who did like Desperate People. Is that what it's called?
Difficult People?
Anyway.
Ordinary People?
Oh my God. All right. We're going to cut for a Google search. No, I just mean like, it just seems so dated. Like, I guess I read something that the script had been like floating around Hollywood for like a decade. And it does seem like it's from another era. I mean, I think the fact... Well, go ahead.
I was going to say that like my fix for this movie, which is not even a fix, but like having read a little bit about the history of this movie and how like Ron Howard was signed on to direct it for a long time, and then Jonathan Demme for a long time, and it was going to be a Julia Roberts joint with Richard Gere,
which makes total sense.
Like, and that's what I was going to say. It's like my
Jonathan
fix is
Demme.
that fucking movie.
Yeah.
Because I really do think that the thing that's wrong about this movie, I still wouldn't have loved it if it was that movie. But like, I think that the thing that makes it so offensive is like the Coen Brothers tone just does not fit in this movie at all. It's so like hateful. It feels so hateful. Like every part of it.
It felt to me like some like kind of up and coming filmmaker who's trying to make a name for themselves wanted to make a like rom-com in the style of the Coen Brothers and just failed miserably at it. Like, let's throw some Coen Brother elements into this movie and see if it works. Let's make some silly names and some kind of jokes, and then have the same person repeat lines, and then other people are going to repeat the lines, and it just not work at all. Feel just completely flat. Ugh.
I really think that like if it was
all
just another sort of Mickey Blue Eyes or you know like that kind of movie, it would just be another one of those and like not as truly offensive to me. Like I was so sick watching this movie. Part of that is that I just haven't watched a bad movie in so long because of like streaming era where we're at now. Like if something doesn't hook me or if I just know that it's bad, I check out after like 20 minutes. Like I'm done. This is like because of this fucking project that we're doing. I sat through it and I'm like just getting madder and madder. Like,
but I think what's really annoying about this movie is not just that it's like dark and hateful. Because again, a movie like, and I was trying to say Ruthless People was the movie that I was thinking. Where you do like a dark romantic comedy, like that stuff. It can be good and like have like a social satirical element to it that is like biting and cutting. I mean, like a really dark comedy like Burn After Reading is like. You know, like can be really enjoyable and like really hateful, but really well done and say something and you get something out of it. You know, in a romantic comedy where the characters are going to end up together, you should like care about the characters, not even like them, but just like care what happens to them. But in this movie, you absolutely don't. Like they just hate every character so much, and it's just like all the, like the story about like will they or won't they get together and what it's like the fun of like getting them together is just completely sucked out of it. There's no comic energy. There's no like I was
there's no
thinking
chemistry
about
between them at all.
More than chemistry, it's like I was thinking like what are those like the fundamental things of like drama? It's like logos, eros, and pathos. Like there's none of those. Not one of those things exists in this story. It's just like a scene will start and you're like, oh, where's this going? And then it's just like one character just like blathering on and like, you know, George Clooney, all he had to do was play basically himself. Just be suave, just be kind of like this ruthless like killer and then get like softened up, you know? But from the beginning he plays it kind of quirky. He goes for like a kind of like eccentric kind of guy, and it never for me lands. It makes no sense. Like I mean,
no, I felt like you did with Oh Brother Where Art Thou with him in this movie, where it was just like where that his performance in that really worked for me, him doing his Gable thing, but like him doing his Cary Grant thing in this was like so just like arch and hacky and like cheesy to me. I don't know. Like it really,
he's not a good actor.
He slides into full on cartoon by the third act where he's just you know when the manicness takes over. It's like this is really, I actually groaned audibly, and I don't ever really do this when I'm watching a movie at least 3 different times, and it was almost all in the third act. I'm like, oh, like is this over yet? You know? Good. God.
It's very tiresome.
When Wheezy Joe comes into it, like you said in the intro, it's just like I was checked out at that point. But then when the hitman Wheezy Joe comes in, it's just like, oh, so we're just like fucking killing each other now? Like that's what's happening? And I get it, but like, let's just talk a little bit about like the context of this movie. Is that like, it's an absolute throwback to like the Howard Hawks classic I truly love.
I think the script,
I mean, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think the script was like, again, like a more contemporary, like just dark romantic comedy like existed in the 80s and 90s. done 10 years later by the Coen Brothers, who are injecting forcefully and like, you know, like evil scientists in a lab, trying to create, like, make a classic thing that's like a throwback to those classic movies. And there's,
but I mean, is like, even just from like the standpoint of like, marriage is something that you just like do willy nilly. That's like a very like, you know, 1940s, 50s, like Howard Hawks era kind of thing. Even life and death kind of thing is like that in a lot of those movies, where it's just like, oh, I hired somebody to kill my wife, like, you know what I mean?
But
like,
or like the War of the Roses too, though. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
that's what I'm saying.
Exactly
Like,
that.
they were trying to tie that make that bridge between those two eras, and you get like that courtroom scene where they're like the Baron, like 10 different people say the Baron's name.
Your Honor, I call Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy.
Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy.
Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy.
Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy. Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy.
Puffy.
Heinz the Baron Kraus von Espy.
Norgay.
Oh my
Again,
God.
that would have worked like in
Jesus
an old movie that
fucking
like is
Christ.
like just this light kind of fluffy thing, but it doesn't work in this movie. And I do think it's, speaking of how dated it is, like maybe this makes sense if you live in Hollywood where everyone is rich, every man is a rich producer, and every woman just like lives off the wealth of the man. But in 2003, to make a movie where like women are like, I must be free, so I must destroy the man in my life, it seems like so disconnected from the life of any working class person. The only working class
absolutely
character in
right.
the movie is Wheezy Joe. And when he
Yeah,
dies,
to a
I was
lesser
just
degree,
like,
maybe
not
guess-
Wheezy, kill any other
It's
character
a cold
but Wheezy
metal
Joe.
gun barrel in your
Or,
mouth. It's
I guess,
not your warm inhaler. Come on.
He's just trying to do his job. He's just doing his job. Everyone else is
what's-
just like, anyway.
Gus Page or whatever his name is.
Gus
Cedric
Pitch.
the Entertainer. Yeah.
Gus
he was
Pitch.
another working class character, I guess. And like, you know, I was going to say like,
He's
the
got a
way that
huge
they-
house, though. I mean, he's working class, but he's like petite bourgeoisie. He's like living
Sure.
in luxury.
Sure. That's just like a Hollywood thing. I feel like it's really like they almost no movie knows how to show what middle class people live like. I don't know. But anyway,
I think
like,
he's petite
yeah.
bourgeoisie, and then he gets his own TV show, and I don't, you know what I mean. It doesn't. It feels like that's like a natural progression for his
But
character.
that's, like,
It's not like he's
part
plucked.
of the,
He's not
like-
plucked from like the street, and then you know what I mean. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, I just think like the way that they dip their toes into like race jokes in this movie too is so fucking cringeworthy every time that they do it, and like makes it so much worse. And like this is a movie that does have like an okay amount of representation. Like it's got like, you know, I was scanning the crowd in like the speech that he gives up to the lawyers to make sure that there was black people in it, and there are.
Ian, I think your priorities are somewhat.
Listen,
like,
I was checked out of the movie at this point, 100%. I'm just like, for the podcast sake, I'm just like, can I at least make sure they're doing this?
well, you must have incepted me because I feel like I was doing the same thing, and I'm like, yeah, at that time there may have been that many women, but like, it was. Can we talk about Cedric the Entertainer for a minute, just as an actor?
Yeah.
Please.
When I saw the movie Top 5, I was like, why has Cedric the Entertainer never starred in a movie that's been like gotten an Oscar? Because that guy is like a tour
He's so
de
good.
force. He's good in this movie, but like he's kind of just, I feel like he's just kind of rolling with it. But like in Top 5, he steals every scene he's in. Have you guys seen that?
Always good. I'm a huge fan of his, and like,
Well, what's his best role though? Because like I don't feel like he's ever
I mean,
been
the
used
barbershop movies, he's fucking great in.
Okay. I just don't feel like he's ever been utilized to his full potential, I guess is my
Yeah.
point. He's great in, did you guys see the Paul Schrader movie?
Yes.
First Reformed?
Yes, exactly. I was trying to think of it. He's great in that one. Everyone's great in
He's
that
great in
movie.
that, yeah.
He doesn't even
Yeah.
go by Cedric the Entertainer. He actually goes by his real name for the first time, I think, ever as his credits. He was like, let's go seriously here. Yeah, he's great.
Well, I was still entertained.
Yeah. Hey, weren't we all?
And you know, he was fine. Like it's just that he was given terrible script in this movie.
Yeah.
So like, what the fuck was he gonna do? Be funny? Like, it was impossible. Like running around saying, "I'm gonna nail his ass."
It's just
like,
so much when they
cheesy.
I understand that's their convention, and that's not like a new thing, obviously, where a character repeats lines and other people do, but it felt extra cringeworthy when it's like the only thing coming out of his mouth, you know? Nail your ass. And then the
Yeah.
show at the end just, oh.
Yeah, speaking of being out of time, that show looks like The Price is Right. And again, this is 2003. Like, that kind of, like, entertainment doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
This movie was, like, doomed, like, from the outset. But what do you think is bad about this movie? Like, let's get into the details because I have some.
You can go
specific
first,
thoughts.
Chris.
Well,
I have some specific.
Yeah, some
thoughts.
stuff just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, maybe I missed some of this stuff, but like, so wait, okay, Billy Bob is an actor. He's actually an actor. So they've staged an entire giant elaborate wedding on whose dime? Who paid for that wedding? And because Jeffrey Rush would have been broke by that point. I know she beseeches his help to try to like get revenge against, what's his name? Who's spent money on that? And all of that was just to like get back at like way, 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 way down the line. That's ridiculous. Also, so wait, why hire someone? You could literally turn on the TV and see that guy. If you can turn on the TV and see this dude, you probably shouldn't hire that guy to be the. I know, and these are small kind of plot point things, but like it's all completely taking me out of the movie. I don't know.
That stuff didn't bug me, but it did bug me in the sense that it was like, why couldn't if they'd set it up like where there was a clue, like when he looks back, he's like, wait a minute, there was nothing in that cake. I never had a bite of the cake. It was paper, like some kind of like. Giving an idea of how it worked out instead of it's just like, just trust it, just go with it. Because
my problem with those plot points isn't even like the same thing as you, but also just like that the idea that George Clooney's character is so stupid that he wouldn't see what she's doing just takes you like completely. It gives you no empathy for him or like no like way to like project yourself on.
Well, especially given how thoughtfully they tend to craft their narratives, where you can see almost what people know and when they know it and why they know it and how that informs every decision they make after that and prior to that decision, right? So this one just feels like it's so full of holes that are so unlike the movies that they tend to make. And that was one of the biggest things for me. That and just like the absolute lack of chemistry between these two people. I was wondering literally at one point during the movie, do Catherine Zeta-Jones and George Clooney actually hate each other? Do they like dislike each other in real life almost? Because it feels like let's be as far apart from each other as possible. And the one time they kiss, it's like they're blocked and you can't see their faces. It's like, I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
But what was their attraction based on? I mean, just they look good? Because like you never really bought like why he was so hung up on her. Like,
right.
I mean, I didn't
this
buy
was
it.
my like, issue with, or this is where I think it goes wrong, is that like I actually wrote down like off the top of my head just like Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, Adam's Rib, Holiday, Desk Set, Philadelphia Story. These are all like movies that I love like deep in my film heart, of movies where like the romantic comedies from the 40s and 50s where like the two leads hate each other and they're bad to each other, and then they like, but you want them. I mean, even if you don't really care if they succeed, because that's not what always like the farcical nature of these movies are. You like, there's always a moment where like, usually because of the time period, it's like the woman becomes vulnerable, and like the man shows that he's like something more than what he's been presenting, and not a huge asshole, even though they've been assholes to each other the whole time.
That's like, George Cukor, though. I don't like George Cukor. I don't like George Cukor. All his movies are bad.
That's insane.
Yes,
they're all like the Women is his only movie that like is like almost great, and it's still undone by like how bad the politics are like on its face, and the main woman is
yeah. I mean, I agree with you with like time like in retrospect, the like gender dynamics of the
I can like movies with bad politics. I'm saying that those movies' politics make them bad, but I don't know.
But they aren't bad. They're really good, and like mostly because like the star turns are like, more rounded than in this movie, and like even when it's comedy, I mean even when it's arch comedy, there's like a moment of vulnerability in all of those movies where like, like you see them quietly together and you buy into like, okay, like this is where this movie is gonna go.
Yeah,
and in this movie, like, Catherine Zeta-Jones never has a moment of vulnerability. Fucking
it's on
Cary
the page.
Grant, whatever his name is George Clooney, like never has like a moment of like actually doing the bigger thing. I mean, I guess it is on the page.
It's on the page because they keep going movie, like, "Oh, you're exposed," but it never actually like never feels real. Like it never like works.
And on top of that, it's just like, just by the nature of the fact that it's like a modern movie, and they've done this thing multiple times where they'll sort of I mean, the last movie we talked about, The Man Who Wasn't There, was like their take on like a genre of movie from the 40s and 50s, much like this one is. But like the fact that this was set now and it was like trying to be modernly funny is like the only way I can think of it, with like the stupid catchphrases and like the, you know, I don't know, whatever fucking stupid shit. Like that stuff doesn't fit in those 50s movies. You know what I mean? Like the 50s movies wouldn't have the like, we're gonna nail your ass, like all that bullshit. So like, you just don't buy into the tone of like the 50s thing. I think if they like would have done their version of like a, you know, desk set, go for it with your Q-core hate, but it would have been, I don't know, if they would have like made it more period specific or something, like it could have worked potentially. I don't know. It just fucking like, it made me mad because it was going for that, and then it just didn't. Right. It wasn't that.
I was really looking forward to this because I'd only seen bits of it when it came out, and I forget like even what the context was, but I was like, oh, this isn't working, whatever, I stopped. But I was thinking like, I was curious to see what they did with like a modern version of that kind of comedy, because those old romantic comedies really are like one of my favorite genres. I mean, when those movies were being made, they were like the best thing that Hollywood was producing. And I was kind of excited for this one. Again, I think George Clooney, when he's just in like full George Clooney mode, can be like, you know, really decent, you know? And I actually think Catherine Zeta-Jones did an okay job in this movie for what her part was. But, yeah, in the same way,
we can in the way that I judge any performance except for maybe Billy Bob Thornton.
In the way that I said, The Man Who Wasn't There was like a really great blending of like the kind of things that they like to tell in their stories, these kind of like philosophical things, and their kind of like genre obsessions, you know? This felt like the worst of all worlds. It felt like they really had nothing to say about contemporary LA people except like they're awful. You know, women are conniving and men are heartless and also stupid. And it was just a long hour, 40 minutes of basically.
Can we talk about the fact that it also cost $60 million to make and it made $120 million? It was like a resounding success. And like, it's got, you know, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, people like this movie.
Well, whether they paid to see it and whether they liked it, I think are two different things. Maybe they were partly
I'm saying 80% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. Like,
I see.
That's insane. Like it's, I mean, I don't know exactly what the number is, but I remember it's high. Like it's one of their more successful movies.
Well, when there's only 10 reviews on it and 8 of them are positive and all of them are written by the Coen Brothers family members, then that's probably what happened, I think.
I don't think that's what it was, though.
The Coen cousins have their own critical union.
No, I was reading some of the reviews for this movie because I was baffled by how positive they were, like given how much I hated it.
Film criticism is like a you know, there's a phenomenon where a movie gets like a buzz, and then that is the consensus. Like the consensus is reached like almost instantaneously. No one really diverges from it until like a thought piece, like, you know, 3 months later, like 6 months later, like or a podcast exposing the, you know, grim truths of the reality of Coen's failures. No, but like, you know, film criticism is just like a joke, and like, yeah, when you. I mean, obviously,
because you're right, because it was all the same reviews in at least the few that I read, scrolled through.
Same points.
And it was saying like, you know, finally a romantic comedy with brains. Like they're so used to like stupidity in romantic comedy. And this is like a like crackling dialogue, supposedly. This is according to them. Not
right.
me.
No, I get it.
Like, you know, and like, if that's what everybody's saying, and you add that to the fact that like in 2003, Catherine Zeta-Jones is coming off of her Oscar. George Clooney is absolutely at the peak of his power as an actor. Like
standing there smiling. That's.
Well, I'm not saying that he's at his best. He's at his worst. But I just mean like if you were gonna, that must have been the year he got Sexiest Man Alive. One of the like several years he did. Like he was just the most A-list of A-list movie stars at that time. I feel like that year was the same year.
It was a mass delusion.
Probably.
This is the post 9/11.
So if you got like
psychosis.
the two the two biggest movie stars like co-leading a movie together, or female and male at the time. And like, it's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's got like the side characters are like Jeffrey Rush, Edward Herman, Billy Bob Thornton, you know, like these big name actors. Like it's Richard Jenkins. Like, I feel like you've got like a recipe for people to be like,
exactly.
Now that's a romantic comedy that I'll see. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But then like, you watch it now, and I remember seeing it in the theater. I'm just going to keep talking. Sorry. I saw it in the theater. I don't remember who all I saw it with, but one of the people I saw it with was my old roommate, Jer, and he loved it. And I remember at the time, like from the moment I saw it start, where like, I shouldn't say from the moment, it opens on Jeffrey Rush singing
Paul Simon
in the car. Yeah, Paul Simon. And like, he's a magnetic guy. Like Jeffrey Rush is a great actor, and he's like a magnetic guy. But so like in that opening, you know, moment where he's sort of it's so obvious that his wife is cheating on him, and he's going through the house looking for her. And there's like a moment where it's kind of like where I'm like on board, where I was just like, okay, like,
I was never on board.
Okay.
Oh, from the first shot. From
that first shot.
No, I was like, what the hell is this? It was awful from the first frame, but that's my opinion. But go ahead.
But then, like, as soon as the guy comes out and he's like the stupid pool boy guy or whatever, and then it just becomes this like weird class dynamic bullshit thing that they're doing, where they're just like, I don't know. It's like just immediately hit me the wrong way. And then she stabs him in the ass, and it's got like a fucking weird, like, I feel like there should
He
have
literally
a sound
says,
effect, like,
that's my daytime television lifetime achievement award.
Oh my God.
It's like when someone
Thank you
says,
for
hello,
quoting
my
it, because it
sister,
made me
how are you
so-
today?
Yeah.
Like,
It made me so mad when he said that. I turned to my girlfriend and I was just like, I fucking hate this movie. We have to play a game while we watch it or something. Like, I was so mad.
Yeah, and then the fact that he shoots at them, and then like, and then later in the movie, you're supposed to be really impressed that George Clooney is able to make a case for the woman in the divorce proceedings. He shot at them. Like, that's attempted murder. That's not a difficult case to make.
Exactly.
All they had to do is like have him like casually like throw like a book or something out the window at them, just kind of like impotently, and then he tries to make that into the, you know what I mean, to the assault case. Then you'd be like, oh, he's so clever. He's like 10 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. But instead, the movie's like 5 steps behind. You know what I mean? And I feel like just making the actors give like these kind of like doofusy performances is what they were trying to like, how they were trying to create comedy, and like literally no comic energy in the acting or the filmmaking was ever reached. For me, the low point was, or the thing that kind of like, you know, exemplified why the movie was bad was the Gilmore dad jumping on the bed with all the women in their like Fredericks of Hollywood lingerie, and then he collapses, and one of the women is like, because his name is Rex Roth. And which again is like a name out of the 30s for like he'd be like the big fat rich guy like in like a Preston Sturges movie. Absolutely. And then he's like and she's like, "What's the matter, Rexy?" In like a perfect voice. And honestly, like, she nailed the voice, but all the actors, you can just tell they're like from like central casting, like, you know, like not too young but young, sexy woman who looks good in lingerie. They're not funny. They're like, it takes effort and energy to create like a comic repartee and to create a world that has like this comic verve to it. And there's no effort put into that. And it just kind of like sags out of the screen at you. And it's just like so boring and I don't know. I just
no, totally. We talk a lot about their recurring characters, and I'm actually now, after I've seen it, so thankful that 0 of their returning characters before the last 2 movies that actually appear in it, with only one minor exception being, of course, Bruce Campbell in that little soap opera role. Literally not one single recurring character before Big Lebowski,
Richard
or before
Jenkins,
Man Who Wasn't There.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, where's Francis McDormand or Steve Buscemi or Turturro or Goodman? Thank God they're not in this shit stain of a movie. A blemish upon their fine reputations, like,
because I did think of that. I was thinking about, like, because we do this recasting thing sometimes, and I was thinking like, okay, if this had like a Coen Brothers cast, besides obviously the one you're not thinking of is George Clooney, who's been in movies before with that.
No, like I said, the last two movies, there's not one recurring character because Man Who Wasn't There and Oh Brother Where Art Thou.
Before that,
no one before that appears in the movie.
So yeah, so I was thinking like if we slotted in some of their, their repertoire or whatever you call it, like into this movie, would it be better? And it wouldn't be. Like I don't think that I think that honestly the Coen Brothers were the problem with this movie, and it's weird to like say that like in this Coen Brothers podcast, but like I do think that like it would have been fine if not a great movie. Like I said, it would have been another like fucking Mickey Blue Eyes or like Runaway Bride, like just an inoffensive movie if it was made by, but Gary Marshall or something. Like I don't know.
But I think there is something in the script that is good though, and like you said, I think the problem is the Coen Brothers. But why? What were they going for, and what did they achieve? Because I have a couple thoughts, but yeah, I think a funny movie that kind of like continually kind of ramps up the stakes as it goes to the point where at the end the two main characters are about to kill each other, like literally, and then it ends with them getting together, like, and they're like high-powered lawyers, and the movie kind of hates them. Like that doesn't have to be a bad movie. It really doesn't. And I think if Jonathan Demme did something like that again with Richard Gere and what's her face, Julia Roberts, and kind of did like kind of like skewering their own like personae. And making it fun, like that could have been really cool, but I don't think that's what the Coen Brothers are interested in doing. And you know what I mean? They're more like, again, it's about to them, it's like, how can we make this kind of modern movie, which has a lot of good ideas, work as like as a classic comedy? You know what I mean? And like we'll pare down the visuals to kind of create like a minimalist aesthetic, but then the effect that it ended up having, I think, was that it like is incredibly bland looking. Like again, from the first frame, there's shots that could have been like out of a Disney Channel movie, like when the Gilmore dad is being attacked by the Rottweilers and he closes the door. And
give the man some respect. Edward Herrmann is a great actor. He's so good in Lost Boys.
I know who Edward Herrmann. I know. Yeah, he's he's a
I
special guest star on the Gilmore Girls every episode.
Okay, I never watched the Gilmore Girls. I apologize.
No, I don't mean any disrespect to him. I'm just, again, I don't want to. I always want to call him Bernard Herrmann, so I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk embarrassing myself.
I want to just throw this out there really quick because I want to talk about a good movie for 1 second. I watched Lost Boys over this Halloween for the first time in probably 5 years. It is the best fucking movie.
Yes.
It is so good. And my voice is cracking because I'm about to expose myself. He's fucking sexy in that movie. Like, I'm like,
whoa,
holy shit, he's like a 2020 snack. Like, he really has like now era vibes in his style and stuff like that. I'm like, dude,
who are you talking about?
Edward Herrmann.
What?
You may be the only person. You might be the only person with this opinion, Ian.
I don't care. Watch it again.
No, I watch it all the time. Lost Boys is one of like the most. I watched it for the first time a couple years ago on Blu-ray, and I always loved the movie. I always thought it was super stylish. Yeah. It is one of the most gorgeously shot films of all time. There's these shots where the camera zooms over the sand, and every dapple in the sand has this like blue color to it. And I was like, who shot this? It was Michael Chapman, who's like Martin Scorsese's regular cinematographer, shooting for the incredibly stylish Joel Schumacher at his peak of his like music video skills. An amazing movie, a million great performances, just a masterpiece.
So good.
Pop masterpiece.
Let's do that one.
Let's keep talking about it now.
Yeah. One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. It was all the damn
Edward Herrmann.
Great end line. Better than "You're exposed."
Edward Herrmann is so bad in this movie though. Like
he's fine. He's fine.
They're doing when they're doing. It's not his fault, but like the choo choo choo. Like when they're all dancing, like you just brought up, where it was like when one of the parts where you're completely checked out was also like the 4th or 5th time that I completely checked out of this movie, where I was just like, I thought I hated this movie and now I'm just mad. Like, I'm like, why do they think I need to see this like cheesy ass fucking thing? You guys are smarter than me. Like, why are you being so stupid to the Coen brothers?
Well, yeah. Well, what are they trying to like get across? Like, what is the point of this movie?
I don't know. I know that like they came in as their first job as punch up guys. Like, This is in the early 2000s, or I mean in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
But in the 90s,
Okay,
they came in when it was still attached to Ron Howard and punched up the script and got like a screenwriting credit on it. And then it like stayed in development for years, but nobody could get it made for whatever reason. And then finally they were just like, okay, they had been working on this movie, their fucking war movie, like this terrible tragedy that never got made because everything I've read about it sounds amazing. And funding up pulled, and they were like, okay, we can't make this movie that sounds amazing. I hope that they somehow still make it someday.
What war?
But like, it's a World War II movie. And it gets pulled, and then they're like, okay, well then let's just make Intolerable Cruelty. So I think that it's not necessarily the kind of movie, given that like arc of the script and the production, that like they did have a lot to say in the making of it. You know what I mean? I don't think it was like, it's anything but a passion project for them. I felt like after it ended, like they took the rabbi that in this movie, it's the boss of the lawyer, of the law firm. And they just like completely just stole that whole character and essence and everything and just implanted it into a serious man. Yeah. Like almost verbatim, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I just felt like they were like, okay, that's what we liked about this movie. And so we're just going to do that again because I just don't feel like they really cared about this movie that much.
No, it doesn't feel like they care about it. It feels like they're trying to like take, somebody else's idea and be like, okay, there's some good stuff here. We can make it work, but only by doing these kind of echoes of like a classic romantic comedy. And so they just get this like thing that doesn't work like in any time for anyone. Although apparently a million people love it. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But I will say,
and also, oh, go ahead.
No, and then they like to throw let's pepper some of our own flair in there. Like, let's have a powerful old guy behind a desk again. Yeah,
right.
We'll turn down the lights and make him look like a vampire. Perfect. Nailed it.
It was funny. I watched this movie with my wife, and when the kind of final plot came in, and again, this movie could have worked if it was like the stakes continually get raised, but instead it's just sort of like a plot is some sort of trick is happening, but then while it's like kind of the machinations of it are kind of working themselves out, nothing happens. Like there's no kind of like crazy back and forth. The stakes aren't being upped in any sense except George Clooney, pulling, stupid looking faces, being like, oh, I'm really concerned about this. I'm obsessed with you again, she has like 3 lines in the movie where she's actually saying like, yeah, I eat men like you for breakfast. Like, okay, great. He meets women like this all the time. Like, what's the point? When I have 2 issues. One is like when they hire a killer to take out Catherine Zeta-Jones, that should have been the beginning of the movie. That's the beginning of a Coen Brothers movie, right? Like if they had done like the whole setup like much, much quicker, or like that's half the movie. I don't know. There are ways that it could have I think they could have worked it into their style that they just didn't bother with. And then also after they're going to murder each other, the movie goes back to let's sign this prenup that's so they lower the stakes like considerably after that. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it reaches a fever pitch. It's just like, well, let's go back to the prenup, but it's so solid, and it's like, I don't care. Like they were just going to murder each other. What happened to that? I don't know. I'm just trying to say like from a basic construction standpoint, this movie just does not hold water.
Well, you brought something up really interesting to me that like, Chris saying like they didn't use their acting troupe in this movie at all, but like they also don't stick to like their classic format. Like you said, of like a crime or any kind of like bad decision, like spiraling out of control. This is like the first movie maybe. I mean, I guess Headsucker Proxy is a little bit more closer to this movie, but really this is like so different than the other movies in that it doesn't have that kind of like, you guys know what I'm saying. Like it's not doing that at all.
No one's kind of doing anything wrong because they all live in this like, world where there is no God. Women, like there is, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was going to say, while we're talking about the recurring themes, because a lot of most of their movies also we've talked about involve like the little guy taking on the big guy, you know, or like the downtrodden takes on like the system or whatever.
Yes.
There is none of that. Literally, like you said earlier, Travis, everyone is just despicable. We don't want to get behind anybody. And they're all these rich, like every single character, including even Gus Petch. Like you said, he lives in a nice house and everything. Who are we supposed to actually feel for in this movie or like relate to or empathize in any meaningful way with, you know? And I was waiting. I'm just waiting and waiting. And like 25 minutes in, like, okay, when's it?
That
No new character. That's it. This is what I'm gonna get.
Interrupted myself with earlier, which is that like, what's the point? Maybe this is all a joke on us because what's the title mean? Because it's like that's not like the first thing you think of. I guess it's divorce lingo, you know, maybe, but like that's not the first thing you think of when you think of divorce lingo. Like maybe irreconcilable differences would have been like a better title if it was that, but like. What is intolerable cruelty if not just talking about like how fucked up these people are? Like it's not like a romantic thing at all. Like it doesn't like I don't know.
My
what
wife.
Does that mean?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question. I was thinking about that too, and I was thinking like, to me, it just sounds like one of the Coen Brothers like obnoxious titles, like you know, Hudsucker Proxy and all that stuff. It's just like add as many syllables into it and make it sound like a title of like some obscure book or something like that, and then it's you know you're done. I meant to say this earlier. I'm sorry, but a movie my wife brought up when we were watching it was First Wives Club because that's a movie that was made like in the late '90s, and it's got some funny stuff because it's got a very very like female perspective. It's based on a book, I think, and it's all these women basically get cheated on by their husbands, and they have to like make a new life for themselves like late in life, and they have to you know. And it's supposed to be this like inspirational story for women, but none of these women like work. They're all just like the ultra wealthy, and it's told from the perspective of like the 1%. So it's so out of touch. And it, like I said, it came out in the late '90s when like you know what percentage of women were already like working full time or working at least part time. Like it had nothing to do with like the plight of actual women. It was very much like a Hollywood's version of like female empowerment. Like how much money from your husband can you get? And it's just like it's kind of like insulting and out of touch. Like again from its inception. And so to me, it's like very much like of a piece with that. Even though I think that one had a lot more relatable content just because it came from like a female perspective that you don't always see in movies, and it had three really good performances at the middle of it.
The scenes in this movie that are those scenes with like where Catherine Zeta-Jones and her friends are gathered around, and it's like those are the scenes that almost I mean they don't work, they're not funny, but like they are a different tone in a way than the rest of the movie in that they're like more aggressively like I don't know obnoxious and like making fun of like rich LA people. Whereas this one, they kind of can't decide whether they want you to empathize with them or like them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they skirted with some kind of like class politics or like gender politics and stuff, but I don't think any like point really landed or
none of it lands. Right. I mean, even there was a line that I'm glad I don't remember, but when he starts to give his speech and he says some kind of like hints to some kind of like race or like class line. I don't remember what it is, so I'm sorry I brought it up. But I remember like hearing him do it and say, and like as it was happening, it was like right at the beginning of his speech. And I was just like, oh, don't do that. Like, don't at this point in this movie start to make jokes like that about like how we're the 1% kind of thing. Because we are already in this movie, at least I was like hating those characters so much that I'm like, if this is going to suddenly turn into the kind of movie that they're trying to get us to hate these characters, then I'm on board. But I knew that that's not where it was going. It was going to try to get us to like, you know, be happy when they end up together in the end.
I mean, barely. They barely tried.
Why the fuck would we be?
I don't think they really really tried. Like I said, there's no kind of logic behind their attraction. There's no like chemistry, and so what? You know, what's
but you know, I mean, honestly, that's okay with me in a way because it's like with the classic movies that it's parodying, like the Philadelphia Story, for example. Like it's a classic, and like you don't really have an opinion like whether she should be with Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart in that movie.
I do.
Well, maybe you do.
I have very strong opinions on that movie. I don't like it. I don't like that movie.
Well, fine. But I'm just saying, like, both of the characters are like bad and good for different reasons. And like, it's not like, what I mean is you don't care. When I say you don't care, what I mean is that like, I'm not rooting for them to be together in either way. I know that that's where the story is going. Right. I love that movie for different reasons, not because it like makes me feel all romantic.
Okay, so Intolerable Cruelty. What's wrong with the movie?
It's bad.
It sucks.
Okay, okay. But I'm saying, yeah. But what I was trying to say was that there's no entry point to caring about the characters.
Yeah.
There's
exactly.
not. It's
and
not.
That's what I'm agreeing.
It's not romantic.
That, like,
it's not funny, and it's not like intelligent. So what are you left with?
It's intolerable. So what I'm saying is that like in Philadelphia Story, while if you're talking about these two movies as like a pair, then like neither one of them. I don't think that like the point is that you really want like them to get together at the end. It's more about like the sort of repartee that happens between them. Obviously, for you, neither of them work for that, but for me, Philadelphia Story does work on that front, you know? And like in this one though, like I actively like don't want them to be together. Like it's not like Philadelphia Story where it's like, you know, they are mean to each other the whole time. They fucking slap each other and throw each other down and do all this fucked up shit. But like when they end up together, you're like, yeah, because that's how the end of a movie works. In this one, it's like, I don't know how the fuck this movie is supposed to end.
Exactly.
So I guess it's like, let's just end it on a shitty game show called America's Best Divorce fucking videos or something. Like, it's like, there's nowhere for it to go because you don't like them and you don't, I mean, they're just too mean to each other. I don't know. That's my whole thinking on it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same way. Like, how the hell is this movie going to wrap up? I mean, either way, I can't possibly be invested in the outcome unless they like both like, you know, like Mexican standoff shoot each other dead at the same time, like a la John Woo or something. I don't know. Like, that's the only way I'd be happy with the ending of this movie.
So
yeah, if Wheezy Joe had killed them both, I would have been like, okay, there we go. Now we're talking.
The movie just follows Wheezy Joe for the rest of the
Yeah,
time, right?
exactly.
Let me just take, if I may, can I take a minute and just read a few of the names from this movie? Just
Yes,
to give,
please
like,
do.
yeah.
Oh, God.
Oli Olerud, Sarah Sorkin, Freddie Bender, Rex Rexroth, Donovan Donnelly. It just goes on like
Ramona
this, like,
Barcelona. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Miles Massey. Miles Massey is the lead.
Miles
it's like,
Massey.
It's so.
Yeah.
And this is funny because I was
Marva
coming
Munson.
off of.
It's
I was coming off of The Man Who Wasn't There. And the one thing I was going to say that was in my notes, I was looking at my notes, that I didn't say last week. I mean, there was plenty that I could have said, but like the thing that was in my notes that I forgot to say was how good they are at naming characters. Like, that's how I felt coming off of Man Who Wasn't There, where it's like Ed Crane is like the most 1940s film noir name I could think of for a character like Billy Bob Thornton. And it's so perfect. And then you come into this one and it's just like, oh, are we like Archie Comics right now?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, maybe not.
Agreed.
well,
It's just hard to say. Like some Rex. I mean, how many times did they have to like redo a scene in which someone actually says the name Rex Roth? Like I had to slow down to actually pronounce it correctly. You know, like
the weird Easter egg in this movie where Edward Herrmann's character Rex Rothschild or whatever it is has the fucking RR backwards and forwards on his door,
like Richie Rich.
which is the Richie Rich thing, which he was the dad in Richie Rich. I'm like, what the fuck is this like weird Easter egg to his Richie Rich character?
I thought the
What
Bender
are we
reference
doing
was
here?
like a little hint to like what's his name, Richard Jenkins' character in The Man Who Wasn't There, because he's just always drinking. He's like always on a perpetual
I will
bender.
say-
Like, is that the Bender in this movie?
If we
I don't
had-
know.
Can we just
I don't know.
like if there's
Neither here nor
if
there,
we
but-
can, just for the sake of our like friendship, what was something that was good in this movie? I mean, because I think that like if I was gonna pick something that was good, there
our
were like
friendship
one
with
or
the Coen
two.
Brothers? Why does...
No, I just mean like because we're just sitting here like yelling angrily. For
I think
like
we're
an
having
hour.
fun.
That's harmful.
great.
I
It's
am.
like it's like when you it's like a gang initiation when you just beat someone up randomly on the street.
I do wish
I
though
just
that one of
wanted
us
to
actually
say-
liked this movie, like, and could
I
really
kinda
argue with
did,
the other.
too.
That's the only like downside of this
really wanted
movie.
to.
You know,
I mean,
You're
I really
right.
was hoping. I mean, I'm glad that neither of you did because I would have been like
Blown a
what have I got
gasket.
myself into here. But like you know, Jeremiah, my old roommate, like loved this movie when it came out, and maybe still he bought it on DVD, I remember. And like, I would like to now in 2021 look or talk to somebody who has watched it recently and be like, what is good about this movie?
We should have like we should
find
invite guest people onto the podcast once in a while. We could do like an idiot's corner or something like that, where we have like a dissenting opinion.
Well, but I was just gonna say, like, one, you know, if I can think of like anything good to say about it, just for the fun of it, because why not? We're doing this thing. I don't think that he was, you know, I think that like if anybody was fine in their role, it was Richard Jenkins.
Thank
I thought
you.
He was fine, like he was good.
Thank you.
And like kind of funny at sometimes, and like didn't feel hacky and hammy the way that every other character did.
Richard Jenkins was good. I thought Billy Bob Thornton was good, and
I thought he was terrible.
No,
I
he
was
good.
so
He
mad
was
at
good.
Billy Bob
And then
Thornton. No, he was
also,
bad.
I really liked, what's his name? George Clooney's like assistant lawyer.
Yeah, he was
He
good
seemed
too.
like he could have been a character from like the real movie version of this movie.
That's
not
what I
like the
thought,
parody
too.
version, like which is what
But
we
the
watched.
only I was totally thinking the same thing until my fucking least favorite line in this movie, which made me so mad, was, "What do you think about kilts?" or whatever. And then they have this fucking stupid cut to them wearing kilts for some reason. And then he's like bawling his eyes out. And that part, I was just like, okay, come on.
I like that he
man.
cries
That's
at
fucking
weddings. I
stupid.
thought that was like a funny detail, and I like that he could go so far over the top when, you know, his performance in general was kind of one of the more
Yeah,
subdued.
I liked his performance
Yeah.
too, actually.
The only laugh I literally laughed one time at the movie, and it was at the end when Richard Jenkins, they're at the very end, and I can't remember the line because it's not the line, it's just the way he said it. It wasn't even probably supposed to be funny, but I'm like, oh, Jenkins, I love you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
he's
for
a
that.
great actor. He's a great actor. Yeah, and this movie
When he
though.
comes in,
And then his next line, unfortunately, is, "We're gonna nail his ass," or something like that. I'm like,
Right.
no,
I know.
damn
They
it.
keep doing it. But Richard Jenkins is, you know, a couple movies from now in Burn After Reading, and he's like the highlight of that movie to me in a lot of ways. He's so good. I love that movie. We're going to talk about it soon, but
I just
love
want to
him in
say,
that movie.
I also thought there was like, maybe this was like a joke or something like that, but George Clooney at one point opens his cabinet and there's like a bottle of Scope in there. Was that product placement?
I don't think I caught it. It
Oh, man.
probably was.
Yeah, it's just like this movie just does not feel like a Coen Brothers movie to me. Again, even though they kind of like scrawl their kind of signature all over the movie. Oh, can I say one
tried to.
one more terrible
Talk about it
performance?
more,
One more
because
terrible performance in this movie that we haven't talked about. Carter Burwell coming in with again
Oh,
like
yeah.
just like an over the top
agree.
like
It was so cheesy. It was like you said, it felt like it was like a
Disney Channel original movie. Yeah, in visual, like I can't believe this was shot by Roger Deakins. Like, like paring everything down, like trying to go for like iconic and just ending up just utterly bland and mediocre, which is kind of how I feel about where they ended up with a lot of the visuals for the movie A Serious Man, which we're going to
Serious
talk about.
Man.
But
I know.
yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that one with you because
Yeah.
we have such differing opinions on that movie. But I don't know how we're gonna do Lady Killers next week. I mean, that's I like literally am like, what the fuck did we get ourselves into? Like, thank God, no.
We
Country
probably
for Old Men
could
is
have
coming
done
out.
a combo this and Lady Killers
I
episode.
mean, I just like the idea that like I don't get to watch that many movies just because, you know, of my life. Like I end up watching a lot of movies with Greta, and then like, you know, I'm watching fucking Alone on Hulu right now, which is like a survival show just because it like turns my brain off and it's really fun. But like every once in a while I'll get to watch a movie, and like you know, this week I watched Sullivan's Travels again for like the 50th time. But like after watching this movie, I was like, okay, I haven't watched it like since we've been talking so much about the Coen Brothers, and it's such a just a blueprint for their career.
Yeah.
Like that movie is all of their movies are in that movie, and so I was like, I want to watch that movie. So I put it on the other day, and I was just like, okay, like this is what I want to be watching. Like this is, I'm like, did Preston Sturges like just do what the Coen Brothers did 50 years before and better like than they could ever do? I don't know. It's so good. After watching this movie, I was just like, I
think the
watch
Coen Brothers
fucking
are at
good
a low
movies.
point right now. I think they had a couple of
Yeah.
cool hits and they got a lot of stuff like out of their system. and now they're in a very like uninspired place. They're doing a script that they didn't write initially, which is like the only time they ever do that, right?
Yeah.
And then their next movie is a remake, like of a classic film, and it's like I think they're in a place where again Jonathan Demme kind of ended up there, right? Where he's just like, I'll start doing remakes of the movies I like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of filmmakers kind of end up there.
I mean,
anyway.
And then the week after that is based on a book from, so it's not
so I think they're like, I think they're in a settling into a different phase of their career, and it's like, it's getting a little bumpy, but they're gonna they're gonna get their equilibrium back.
Yeah.
And along with that, just like continuing this thread of this podcast a little bit too, is that like 2003 also has movies like Lost in Translation, and I don't know, it's got like this new indie vibe that like this movie feels so apart from. Like, I don't know. This movie is just so not an independent movie. Like it's so not what like I think of when I think of the Coen Brothers.
And it's so funny because like again, this is like the Coen Brothers kind of like going for like a timeless kind of thing and just falling on their face when Sofia Coppola like made such a timeless movie and at the same time used like Bill Murray's star quality in a way that like the Coen Brothers wish they could have like kind of tapped into for this one. That's a really interesting comparison. Yeah.
Or at least two characters you can like get with, you know.
We gotta rate our movies.
No, we don't. We don't have to.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to.
Same
I might edit this out. I'll just say after I finished this movie, Jenny and I we like wanted to wash the taste out of our mouths, so we checked out A Field in England. Have you guys seen that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The only Ben
crazy.
Wheatley movie I actually like. I have to say, I don't know if you're a Ben Wheatley fan. It's the only one of his movies.
It's my first, and I loved it.
He made Kill List though, right?
Yes.
You gotta watch Kill
I've not
List.
seen that.
I can't stand that movie, dude. I'm one of the only people that really. I have some heavy words for that movie, but anyway, don't
That's our
check it out.
spin-off podcast. But I just want to say, watching A Field in England and like remembering, I listened to like several podcasts where they talked about, and I don't even listen to podcasts, but somehow listened to like 3 where they talked at length about Zack Snyder's Justice League, and all of them just kind of saying like, it's a really interesting movie. It's like really interesting that this movie exists, and I'm like, it absolutely is not. Like
not
like
interesting.
8 years ago, like this movie came out. It's so like different and interesting and cool and fascinating that it exists. Like love it or not. Zack Snyder's Justice League is completely meaningless and pointless.
Yeah,
in its
I agree.
existence.
So hold on,
That's all
don't edit it out. Fargo, Big Lebowski, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Man Who Wasn't There, Blood Simple, Barton Fink, Hudsucker Proxy, Intolerable Cruelty.
All right, mine's still the same as last week. Fargo, Big Lebowski, Man Who Wasn't There, Blood Simple, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Raising Arizona, Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing, Hudsucker Proxy, and Intolerable Cruelty, like way down there. Bottom of the bottom.
I'm going to leave one out. I need your help, you guys. Wait.
So we got 10.
I'll edit. Don't worry, I'll edit this like Dead Space out, but I'm still working on my list.
Yeah.
How many have they made so far? 9?
10. This
9.
is 10.
Oh, 10.
1,
10. This is number 10.
2, 3, 7, 10.
think
Okay, got it.
Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which is after Blood Simple.
Right.
Okay. I can't believe how far Raising Arizona's fallen on your list, Chris.
I know.
After this one especially, I just like cherish the gift that was Raising Arizona. And so I'm going to put that solidly at first place, but right beneath it is the beautiful gem of Fargo. And then below that, Big Lebowski, just like a half step down. Man Who Wasn't There after that, Blood Simple, and then tied for whatever we're on 6 or whatever is of course Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing, and Hudsucker Proxy. Those flawed, special little cult classics. Then at the bottom of the list is Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which I'm just like, I think it's a bad movie. I think it's a not good movie, but it's got a lot kind of going for it at the same time. And yeah, a full step beneath that is Intolerable Cruelty, which is their first just bad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was intolerable.
It was.
And cruel.
It was cruel. All right. We're going to talk about Lady Killers next week. It's going to be just as fun as this
Let's
one.
just skip it.
I haven't seen it.
No.
Actually, it's the
What
last
if we
one I
love
haven't
it?
seen. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then it's worth, it's worth you seeing it. You can tell us your impressions.
I saw it once. If nothing else, I can't wait to talk about just like Tom Hanks's career, like because he's the star of that movie, and he has such a fucking weird career to me. And like now that Chet Hanks is taking over the world, then like I don't know. That'll be like the majority of what I'm thinking about watching that fucking terrible movie.
I'm gonna like fade in on some Chet Hayes music, like to open the episode to get the vibe going, and then we'll go from there.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, that was fun.
Bye.
See you next week.
We eviscerated that movie, you guys. Good job.
All right, bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Auteur Detour. We'll see you again next week.